It's time, y'all. The Southwest Companion Pass is so close, I can taste it. The only thing standing in the way right now is my application for the Southwest Priority Card, and today we're going to find out whether or not all of the work I've put into this strategy will pay off. I'm currently on a 16 card approval streak without ever even being sent to pending review, but I am risking all of that today for this card because of the amount of value it will provide for me over the next 2 years alongside the Southwest Performance business that I added a couple months ago. In an effort to explain how this card is so powerful for the right person and show you how to get approved for it if you do end up wanting it, whether or not I get approved, this video is going to be broken down into 4 main sections. Part 1 will be a brief review of the Southwest Priority Card so you can see whether or not it's a good fit for you. Part 2 will be about why I'm personally applying for it right now. Part 3 will be my data points before applying for the card so you can see how you stack up against me. And part 4 will be the live application with tips and tricks on this particular application to help you get approved if you want it. Last note before we dive in, if I do get denied for this card, which is a possibility for sure, I will film me calling the reconsideration line and doing all of that to hopefully flip the denial to an approval. Starting with part 1 here, the annual fee for the Southwest Priority Card is $149, making it the most expensive personal Southwest credit card option. However, as we'll talk about in a second, you'll see that it's the cheapest option when it comes to effective annual fees, so don't let that sticker annual fee scare you off. The welcome offer that I will be applying for is the base offer of 50,000 points after spending $1,000 in the first 3 months of having the card. Up until today, it did have an elevated offer for 40,000 points plus $400 worth of statement credits after spending $3,000 in 4 months. And while most of y'all probably think it's best to go for a card during an elevated offer period, there are niche situations where it's not, and this is that for me. The first reason why I didn't want to go for the elevated offer is because it required $2,000 more worth of spend to hit the offer, and I'm trying to get the Southwest Companion Pass for as cheap as possible. Second, the return on spend for that welcome offer is actually lower than the base offer. If you calculate out that $400 worth of statement credits into point form and add it to the 40,000 other points from the offer, you'll find that the elevated offer was worth 68,500 points. And in spending $3,000 to get those points, that's a 32% return on spend, which is really solid. But the base offer of 50,000 points for only $1,000 worth of spend comes out to a 70% return on spend, which obviously I like more. The last reason I didn't want to go for that offer is because it's actually not as competitive as other recent elevated offers. Like, for example, my buddy Stan the Credit Frog pointed out that he got an 85,000 point welcome offer on the exact same card just a little bit ago. And that was for the same $3,000 worth of spend. So I really just don't have much incentive to go for that one that was just on it. Remember too that I could get another welcome offer on this card in 2 years, just like the Chase Freedom cards. So if there's a better elevated offer out at that point, then maybe I will go for it. I just didn't like this one. As for how this card earns, it'll give you 3x back on your Southwest purchases, 2x back on hotel and car rental partners, 2x on local transit and commuting, including rideshare, 2x on internet, cable, and phone services, as well as select streaming services, and 1x on everything else. So overall, there's not much to use this card on outside of your Southwest purchases, but on top of me getting a better rate on my Southwest Performance business, either way, I always try to avoid using cash for hotels and flights. Therefore, I really only expect this card to get used during the sign-up bonus period, and then I'll put some kind of recurring charge on it to keep it active otherwise. Then again, I will pull out this card to activate the credits and benefits on it, and speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about those now too. Those being 7,500 points every year on your card member anniversary, a $75 Southwest annual travel credit, 4 upgraded boardings per year when available, and the ability to earn 1,500 tier qualifying points towards A-list status for every $5,000 you spend. In my recent video about the best way to get the Southwest Companion Pass, I talked about this card a good amount and calculated an effective annual fee of negative $31 for it. And like I mentioned earlier, that effective annual fee is cheaper than the Southwest Plus and Southwest Premier cards. And also that was a conservative estimation without including the upgraded boardings in that calculation. So long story short, that's why I chose the card that I did in this strategy. And I'm really not worried about losing money on this card, even though it does have a $149 annual fee. Moving into part 2 here, there are 2 main reasons that I'm applying for this card, and they're actually exactly the same as why I applied for the Southwest Performance business card. And reason number 1, the biggest reason, is that I'm using it to help me get the Southwest Companion Pass for 2025 and 2026. Like I just talked about, I have made a full video about how to get the Southwest Companion Pass the quickest, but to give y'all a brief overview of what that entails in this video, well, if you haven't heard of it before, the Southwest Companion Pass basically gives you a buy one, get one free ticket with Southwest whenever you travel with a dedicated companion, and that ticket that you purchase can be purchased with points. So effectively, by having the companion pass and traveling with that one designated person, you've now doubled the value of all of your Southwest miles. The best way to get it is to earn 135,000 qualifying points in a calendar year. And there are very specific application rules to abide by, which is why, I do recommend you watch that full video. But long story short, you're going to want to apply for one business card, usually the Southwest Performance Business, and one personal card, the Southwest Priority in my case, and wait to hit the minimum spend until the start of a new year, since you earn the companion pass for the rest of the year that you earn it in, as well as the full following year. So obviously now that we're in the new year, that's why you're seeing me complete the strategy to basically maximize the length I get it for almost a full 2 years. Reason number 2 is more in line with every other card that I go for, and that's because I will get value from its credits and benefits. Being from Texas, specifically Austin, I'm a frequent flyer with Southwest compared to every other airline out there. And with that being the case, I know that this card will give me easy positive value. Specifically, I expect to fully utilize the 7,500 points every year on your card member anniversary, the $75 annual Southwest travel credit, and the 4 upgraded boardings per year. And in combination with the 9,000 anniversary points, 4 additional upgraded boardings per year, and 365 in-flight Wi-Fi credits that I get on my Southwest Performance Business, I'll be flying with Southwest for pennies on the dollar for the foreseeable future, which is pretty awesome. While we're talking about why I'm applying for this card, I figured it'd be good to touch on how this card impacts my credit card roadmap. And just like the Southwest Performance, once again, this card comes in basically exactly when I initially planned for it. That's the beauty of the Southwest Companion Pass strategy, in my opinion. It really just takes away all of the guesswork. You know exactly what months you need to apply for these cards in, and exactly what months you need to hit the minimum spending requirements in. So it's really been a good way for me to round out 2024 and start 2025 with a simple, straightforward goal that I'm working towards. The only real decisions I had to make with this strategy would be, 1, which cards I want to use to complete the strategy. But obviously, like I mentioned, the effective annual fee calculations made that extremely clear. And then second would be whether or not I wanted to go for that elevated offer on the priority card. But again, the numbers just don't lie. And after doing the calculations that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I knew that it was right for me to just wait until now to apply for it rather than getting it during that elevated offer period. So needless to say, I feel really good about the Southwest Companion Pass strategy and its alignment with my personal travel goals, which is really all that matters. So I hope y'all are excited for some fun Southwest redemptions this coming year, considering I'll probably get more value from those redemptions than even international travel would give me. Switching gears a bit now, let's get into my data points before applying for the card. The last personal card that I applied for was the Citi Strata Premier back on May 14th of 2024. So obviously it's been quite some time since I went for a personal card, and that means that I've been doing a good job of gardening my Chase 524 status, which we'll touch on in a second. The last business card that I went for was the Southwest Performance Business, and that was just on October 30th of 2024. So this is the one that makes me a bit worried about getting approved for the priority, mainly because I'm just requesting more credit from Southwest and from Chase, like really quickly back to back. However, it has been a bit over 2 months since I applied for that card, and that's pretty close to what my normal cadence is of applying for a new card. And obviously up until this point, that strategy has worked really well for me and I haven't been denied. So we'll see. Let's keep this streak going. Hopefully. Touching on my 524 status, first of all, for those that don't know, the Chase 524 rule is a rule that I abide by pretty strictly because I love getting more and more Chase Inc. cards specifically added to my setup. But what the rule states is that if you've been approved for 5 or more personal credit cards in the last 24 months from any lender, you'll automatically be denied for your next Chase credit card application, no matter what Chase card that is, at least for the most part. Well, I personally dropped back under 524 to 424, meaning I applied for 4 personal cards in the last 24 months back in July of this year. So I'm safe in that regard. However, this card will push me back up to 524, meaning that I'm locking myself out of Chase cards for the time being until my next personal card ages past 2 years. And that's actually going to happen in just a month or two. Technically, the beginning of March is when I have it slated. So I'm really not worried on missing out on anything between now and then. And the only reason that I've been able to make sure that I'm not locked out for longer than just a couple of months is because of my credit card road mapping, which is why I preach it as such an important strategy for those to implement if you're serious about this credit card hobby. As for my credit score and hard inquiry counts, first of all, yes, I have my TransUnion and Equifax data from Credit Karma, so they're going to be a little bit higher than they actually report, to the bureaus directly, but they're not higher by much at all. So just calm down in the comments down there. It's just a simple way for me to get the data really quickly. But the experience score is really the only one I care about when it comes to Chase applications anyways. Starting with my TransUnion though, my credit score is currently a 773 and I have 3 hard inquiries with them. With Equifax, I have a 776 with 1 hard inquiry. And with Experian, I have a 757 with 4 hard inquiries. The reason this score is lower than the others is because my Experian credit report is kind of the one that gets beat up the most. Plus, obviously, it was taken directly from Experian, so it's going to have a more accurate representation compared to my TransUnion and Equifax from Credit Karma. But yeah, my Experian score is what gets pulled the most because I go for a lot of Chase cards and Chase solely pulls Experian for me. And I had a recent hard inquiry for that Southwest Performance business, which is again a reason why I'm a little bit worried about this application. Overall though, hard inquiries really are not something that we should be worrying about. And that's because they fall off after 2 years for one. And also they only very minimally impact your score for a temporary amount of time. So the only reason I would really care about them is if you're applying for a credit card that is super inquiry sensitive, or if you're applying for a mortgage or a car loan or something like that soon, where you really need to squeeze out every point possible from your credit report. Last note before we get into the live application here, I always have all 3 of my credit reports frozen from every one of the bureaus. And that's mainly because I don't want somebody to pull my credit without my knowledge. And generally I'll do a temporary thaw for each of the credit reports for about a week whenever I'm ready to apply for another credit card, which is obviously right now. I will show you how to do it on my Experian account since that is the one that matters the most in this application, but I'll repeat the process with TransUnion and Equifax off camera. Just know that if you want to do this yourself, you just create a free account with each one of the bureaus and you can follow the exact steps I'm about to show you just on each of the different websites. Okay, so here we are on Experian's website. And as you can see here, my file is currently frozen. All I'm going to do to solve that is schedule a thaw rather than just unfreezing it because I want the freeze to get automatically added back to my report once this application is done. So I'll click on schedule a thaw, add a thaw here, and then the date range will be from today until Sunday. I click save there, and there you go. The thaw has been successfully scheduled, so now they can access my credit report. Small little note here while I was going to thaw out my Equifax report. As you can see, Equifax themselves are reporting a 776 score for me, and that's exactly what Credit Karma shows too, so it's maybe not as high of an estimation as I thought, but they're showing a Vantage 3.0 score here, and some banks might use a different Vantage score, so that's why you're going to see the different kinds of estimations that I've been talking about. Let me go ahead and resume this thaw though. Now that those 3 bureaus are unfrozen, I'm going to come to my buddy Stan the Credit Frogs channel to use his referral link to apply for these cards since he's one of my friends and we've talked a lot about the Southwest Companion Pass strategy, so I'd love to be able to support him. Of course, you can do the same for really any cards I talk about through the links in the description or go support another one of the great creators out there, but Stan's is going to be the one that I choose to use today. And let's see, we can go ahead and grab that right here. And here is the referral page for all of Southwest credit cards. Definitely don't want to be applying for the Plus card right now, so I'm going to do the priority instead. I will be applying via this page so my friend can get their bonus, don't worry. The first thing I like to check with any application page that I'm going through is to make sure I'm getting the bonus that I really want to get. In this case, obviously I am. This is the base offer of earning 50,000 bonus points after spending $1,000 in the first 3 months of having the card. So I will click here to apply. And now we're on the application page for the Southwest Priority Credit Card. And just like all of my Watch Me Applies, I'm going to very quickly run through the whole application, give you tips and tricks on the more confusing form fields that can help you make or break this application. So we'll do that. I'll fill out my information and then we will submit the application together. To start here though, the personal info up top is very self-explanatory. Don't think I need to explain that. Same thing with the identification, the home address and contact info, more of the same story. Moving to the membership info, all we'll have to do here is enter our Rapid Rewards number, which I would recommend you do before applying for the card if you have one. That'll probably also maybe help you get approved for the card if they see you're a Rapid Rewards member for a long time. So I don't see how that would hurt you. But now a place where I can really give you at least some helpful information, that's the financial info. What you want to choose here for the type of residence is very straightforward, whether you own, rent, or other. I rent, so the only thing that I'll have to enter is my monthly housing payment. If you own, then you don't actually have to put anything here, so that's kind of helpful. But underneath the housing information, you're going to find the employment status and total gross annual income sections, which are sometimes a little bit more confusing for folks. The only tip I will give you on employment status is just to be as honest as possible with it, obviously. I will say that if you are a student looking to apply for credit cards, if you do have a job that you get paid for on the side, I think it's much better to put employed on an application rather than other or a student, because in doing so, you show the banks that you have the ability to pay back all of your credit card bills, and that's a good thing in helping you get approved. And you just got to think about it from their shoes to see why that makes sense. If you were a bank and some college kid with no job asked you for a credit card they're going to run up a ton of debt on, would you really want to give them that line of credit compared to somebody that's employed and actually making a decent living? So whenever I was a student applying for cards, luckily I was working side jobs the whole time through college to help pay for tuition, so I would put employed in these applications. As for the total gross annual income, the tip that you need to know here is that, well, right underneath it, it tells you your total gross annual income is what you earn or reasonably expect to earn. If you're 21 or older and regularly use income from others to pay your bills, you can include that too. Dropping down the more info tab, all this down here just basically states that you can include every little bit of income on this application that you have, and that's pre-tax income, not post-tax. So theoretically, the higher the income, the better, but you definitely don't want to lie, on this one, because if you're reporting like double what you actually make and they ask you to verify that income and you can't, then you never know if they're going to end up, blacklisting your account for a little bit or what have you. So just be honest with it, but round up rather than rounding down, and just have a way to back that up logically. Underneath that, you just have the authorized user, paperless statements, and pricing and terms. The pricing and terms are important to read through, but some of this I care a lot more about than others. For example, the purchase annual percentage rate, or the APR, is a number that I really don't care about because I always make my payments on time and in full every month. You need to be doing the same thing if you're playing the credit card game. All of the APRs and stuff under that also don't really care about because I'm not going to be missing any payments. The annual membership fee is something we knew coming into the application, but just make sure that that's accurate once again, I guess. And then transaction fees are another important section. I don't ever plan on doing balance transfers or cash advances, so I don't care about those, but I guess if you were going to do that, this is where you'd want to find those. Foreign transaction fees being none is an important thing to know. That helps us take this card abroad, and it is a Visa, so it should be accepted everywhere. That is a nice little perk. Penalty fees are not numbers that you should worry about at all because you're not going to be having any penalties on your account, hopefully. But yeah, you can see those down below too. After reading through all of that, you can click this checkbox on the bottom and submit the application. So that's pretty straightforward for the most part. Definitely more straightforward than the business card applications that I walk y'all through. But with that out of the way, now I can go ahead and fill in my info and get my heart beating and get ready to submit this application. Alrighty, so now is the moment of truth here. I've checked the I've read and agreed to the above box, and we can finally submit this application. Once again, want to reiterate the fact that I'm not positive I'll get approved for this card, mainly because of the recent Southwest card application I did in October. But if I am sent to pending review or denied, which hasn't been the case for me yet, knock on wood, I will include the reconsideration line call after this, and hopefully we can get that flipped to an approval as soon as possible. But make sure everything is recording here. That would have been a tragedy if not. Let's go ahead and submit this application here in 3, 2, 1, submit. All right, they're working on my application, and thank me for my patience. Whew, here we go once again. Number 17. Let's see if we can get it. They're thinking. Boom. Okay, perfect. There we go. We've been approved. Oh, that feels so good every single time. I know it's a weird dopamine rush to get from getting approved for a, plastic credit card, but this one means more to me than a lot of the last applications because now my girlfriend and I can effectively travel for half off for the entire next 2 years. And I'm just so excited about that. So they did give me a pretty healthy credit line of $8,700 as well. I am kind of worried I'm getting to the point now where Chase is going to start denying me because I have too much available credit with them. So I might have to start requesting credit limit decreases, funny enough. But only time will tell on that case. As of right now, I'm 17 for 17 on approvals. And that's such a great feeling. I'll go ahead and say that I've read and agreed to the above and agree and continue to accept this card. So I will be receiving my card in the mail within 5 to 7 business days. However, that's not quick enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and call them after I finish recording this video and see if I can get that expedited and tell y'all more about that in the unboxing of this card, which hopefully will come out in the same week that this one's posted. So there's a little double feature for y'all, hopefully. At this point, if you want to see me apply for some of the other most popular credit cards on the credit card market, go ahead and click into this playlist next. And I'm just going to turn the camera here because Odin's obviously pretty passed out. But as always, if you did enjoy this video, Odin and I would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing to the channel. And as always, we'll catch you guys next time.